Yeah, the prophecy meter. Yeah.
The prophecy meter, that's interesting. I mean, I know it's its own thing, but it reminded me of two things, just in my experience, because I'm not trying to correlate what you did as like, oh, it's already been done before, because they're obviously doing it a different way. And like, not the One Ring, because I don't have that game, but I do have from the developers of the One Ring, the Middle Earth book that goes along with the 5e, right?
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, you've got that ability, that how far the shadow is grown out. So there's also, I've got the Baker Street RPG, and whenever it's more or less attuned to whenever you're trying to, it's that threat. It's called I think a threat meter, to when you're trying to catch the bad guy, and you know what I mean, how far he's gone along in his crime as opposed to what you're uncovering. So I always thought those were interesting, but that's definitely that definitely adds flavor narratively. Like when you're rolling that dice, the prophecy meter, to see, and I don't know how much you're rolling them in game, or whether you just roll them once per session or what, the frequency.
Yeah. But basically the when you start the campaign, so the prophecy meter goes from 1 to 15. The higher it is, the more prevalent darkness has kind of insinuated itself into the hero's environment or their actions. And so that sets it, that 2d6 roll sets it from 1 to 15 for the campaign. And then at the end of each session, there is a process for determining unintended consequences, if you will, for the hero's actions, which includes calculating their good deeds and their bad deeds, and also a random roll to see how maybe some unintended consequences may have also injected itself into the process. And that modifies the prophecy meter either up or down, depending on the hero's deeds and a random roll each session. And that resets the meter for the following session.
Yeah, see, that's brilliant for me, because a lot of it, you'll see the way, with the Dark Age of, is even that roll we did with the luck. I always like to see some kind of a fluctuation or a change in situations. I'm big into that. Even like, I remember, I hate stuff like usage die, because I want to know. There was a game that we played, Blood and Bone, and that has more of a usage die thing to it. And Jason's like doing that. I'm like, I was shooting bows and arrows. I was purposely shooting archers, targeting archers on the wall so they'd fall off, hopefully on my side. And then I could go supply myself from their quiver as I was running across, you know what I mean, inside the compound, trying to get to them. So that was the game I was playing in my head, in spite of what everybody else is doing, because it adds so much. Like if I'm sitting up there and there's 3 guards and I got 2 arrows, which 2 am I going to take out? So it has much more of a dynamic. So I love anything that adds to a game, such as like the prophecy meter, of even gauging the amount of evil in the world. But the way you're doing it here is so sweet, and it's been justified to me, workable in a way. Not that you were doing it exactly the fudge system, right? Like our style points or whatever. But these points you're giving out, to me, at least the way I'm understanding it, is like if that threat meter is up there, you're going to basically be challenged, because you're the light against the darkness. And if you're meeting more resistance, more darkness resistance as a character, you're trying to hold the light and battle against it. You may get these battle wounds, or you may suffer with whether you can leverage yourself to a greater effect on the world in opposition to it. When you get this point, I love that when you was doing the combat, and when you went from when you roll, basically, I'll just say it's action points. Like you rolled the 7 and you were facing the 3 of the goblin, and I think the orc was the 6 right behind it. So you had an opportunity to roll to see if you could hit the goblin, and then you were short in action points on taking the troll, right? So, but you use those points to me, to gain, and reduce his defense down so you could actually do an attack. That adds a whole other element and a dynamic to it. You can spin this point to lower that difficulty down and be able to attack him. So to me, I was like, he's really gone a step beyond it and is opening the door to a more wider audience of players. You see what I'm saying? Where we were just doing it more of a narrative base. So I was like, that's brilliant. Really love that aspect, as well as like the prophecy system. Like I said before, but I'm kind of enamored by that. You know, how it can change and how it can affect and challenge the people, because they are white hats. You've said that white hats against the black hats, basically, and you're trying to fight for goodness in the world as opposed to the oppression and resistance that we all go through in life. Let's face it. You know, living life, you go against resistance, pushing back. So those challenges that you face, yeah, you're giving the players not only narrative ability but mechanical ability to leverage that. You know, so I agree in what you were saying. You reiterated, you know, what we was talking about last night about hit. You added another dynamic level to it. So yeah, I'm really interested in it. All right, I'd like to play it and see what's going on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's definitely what I was going for, was some dynamics so that every conflict round doesn't feel the same as the last one. So it's a little bit more free flowing, dynamic. Definitely a little bit more mechanics in there, so people will have some guidance. But yeah, I wanted every round to be different. That's why there's kind of a random process in there, and there's also the player bringing their character's abilities to bear to change up the situation and make it a little different from round to round.
Yeah, it's that's so important to me, because games can become so stagnant, and even games to where you list the combat ability or whatever, you're looking at the sheet and saying, what am I going to utilize now? And, you know, whether it's some kind of a special attack or whether, like Jason was saying, the bull rush or whatever. So, you know, that can kind of keep a person focused down a narrow funnel. You know, it keeps a one track kind of, I'm saying that expounding upon just the regular hit. And then all they did was up it and say, okay, well, this time I'm going to use bull rush. But it's almost like it's not necessarily giving any power, so to speak, any narrative flavor or power or ability to navigate or their situation or rounds, whether mechanically or narratively. It's more like just, what do I have? It's definitely most are gamey in that respect, where I like to see what you're doing is different than what I've experienced historically with traditional OSRs. It's coming from a different angle. I mean, I don't know if I'm expressing myself right, but that was.
Oh yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I mean, that's refreshing, because so much you can get stagnant, and after a while, I don't care how. I mean, you've been playing this game for years. You know, where you kind of just zone out and you go through. Oh, my turn to hit. Just tell me when it's my turn to hit again. I'll roll. What are you doing, Dale? I'm rolling the hit. You know what I mean? It's the same. And if you wanted a variety, you better play some kind of a mage, and then you're limited to a short list of spells that you can only utilize. It's kind of like a special maneuver that they've given to that. I mean, I'm just saying it's kind of banal, the level of stagnation and not creativity that it kind of ground to a halt. But I mean, like we said, I guess maybe we're living in a renaissance, and you said that the game is a science now, but you can get so scientific mechanically that it loses its soul.
Glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear someone who actually, knows the hobby and has been in a while look at the system and say that, because for me, it was a happy coincidence that piece turned out maybe as unique as it is, or some people feels that it is, because when I started the process, when I committed to the process, what I was trying to do is accomplish a particular goal. And essentially that goal was for even at first level, player characters to be competent enough to face off against multiple threats and have a good chance of surviving. And what I always say is not just because all of the threats are mooks. So having them be able to engage or address multiple foes, whether it be through warfare or using the force of their charisma, made me come up with the attack point system that gives you a variable number of attacks from turn to turn that you can bring to bear. And it like I said, that was the goal, and I came up with a way to do it that I've never seen another system do. And I appreciate it, and it's good to hear that someone who knows their way around the hobby, they look at that and they say, "Oh, I've never seen anything like that before." That feels good, because I definitely have elves in my game. So as a fantasy game, I'm not breaking any ground in some respects, but I do feel like there are some unique aspects to the game, and the prophecy media grew out of the general premise of the setting and this kind of self-destructive course that the world is heading toward, that your character is trying to prevent. So hopefully that makes a interesting gumbo. Though there are some familiar elements like potatoes. I mean, everybody likes a potato, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to me. You can tell I got excited about it by reading it, and I'm cautious in some things I say because I haven't read the whole book, so I don't want to misconstrue anything. I'm just telling you my impressions and the way it's hitting me, and it is very good. And like even when you said, a combat as opposed to, it reminds me of what. Jason and I was trying to back up and to pull, not everything have so much of a martial combat component, but like you're even giving heed to, like we are, like, how do you want to utilize or approach the situation with your mind? What are your three elements? You're using power, but you're using that ability to also influence or intimidate or whatever with another. So how do you, it gives you, it really helps player go, how do we want to focus on solving this problem other than the standard hit. And I know that's, I felt like really a connection there. I'm like, he's trying to do a lot of what we're trying to rejuvenate and rebuild, because it gets stagnant when you do it for so long. And everybody, I think, is looking for some kind of, a rejuvenation of the hobby in a way to not make it so it's like a button masher, on a video game, you're like, dang. I want a little bit of, even when I'm playing a tactical game, I want those options available for me, and like I said, every game is a little bit different, but you're walking a line here to where you give tactical options, to me at least, that are tied to narrative options in a way, to where you can express your character, like I'm saying, giving you more options of expressing, or at least to focus mechanically to say you can approach these. Do you want to intimidate them? Do you want to do whatever? And it's not they have it in tradition. It's just on the back shelf. It's not brought to the forefront to where it's encouraged to use. I want to really break out and make more role playing other characters viable. For so long it's been like, who's the tank, who's the healer, and those games are fine. But what if I want to play somebody like you did, who was like in yesterday's game, or somebody who isn't martially focused so much as, he's a lover, not a fighter, and he's maybe fight for his, and he's got charisma, but you can actually play those characters where he's not a viable thing to play in a traditional game. You know what I mean? So
that's why I love Dark Age, because that prestige stat the fact that you guys, well, you know, and the 6 attribute array of the OSR or D&D, of course, there is a charisma stat, but you guys give it so much weight that you make it a viable option. My character, who was a former noble and a charismatic character, it's a viable option for me to be someone who isn't good with a sword and not to feel outshone by the fighter. And I love that about Dark Age, that you guys have a stat. And I was watching a video where Jason was reinforcing that stat means a lot more than charisma. It's your status in the world. It's how people view you. And you guys make that so powerful. And you can really tell. And I just love the fact, something that I was trying to do with Peace is are there other options other than throat punching your opponent?
Yes.
Do I have to throat punch every problem? No, you do not. And I love the fact that you guys made Prestige a real focus where other types of characters can be viable.
Yeah, and you can inhabit it because like it's long in the tooth. Just combat constantly and solving everything with combat. But what did you say about yesterday when Jason was playing and because I know it's a high fantasy game, right?
Yeah.
And that's totally viable, you know, for me to enjoy because I love even high magic, because to me magic is an aspect that I want to be able to use to solve problems in situations that arise. You know, how can I do it creatively to do it? Whether or not it's something that you envision yourself, like in Dark Age of, or whether it's advancing in magic or anything, it adds depth and complexity and choices, options.
Yeah, Pieces, it's definitely, it's what I like to say, it's a bright and shiny high fantasy world with a dark side. So the setting generally is not a grim, dark setting. It's bright, it's magical, but it has a dark side. And the prophecy meter kind of illustrates that. And the idea of peace, referring to the only peace that this tumultuous world will realize is the peace that comes after it has destroyed itself during the struggle between good and evil. So the title Peace is somewhat of a sarcastic title, because when you hear peace, I think most players will think, oh, this means peace is what will happen after the good guys win. No, peace is what will happen in this world after the good guys and bad guys have kind of collaborated to destroy this world. So what that means for you as a player is you have to be a wise enough hero to know that every problem, you can't be a hammer that looks at every problem as a nail. If a town is infested with evil, if you have the power to level the entire town, should you do it, or should you do the hard work of going door to door and rescuing the townspeople? So that is kind of the idea that this world could self-destruct because of the evil actions, the evil schemes of the fiendish or the overzealous actions of the righteous. So this world, this prophecy talks about, that's the collaboration of the evil schemes of the foul and the overzealous actions of the righteous coming together to totally destroy this world. And one of my favorite mechanics associated with the prophecy meter is Darkness's Temptation, where you can at any time during the game master can offer one of the player characters a battle scar or a Benny action point and say, hey, would you like a battle scar? And it can be any time when the player is about to make a really important roll, or they're in a really difficult combat, or the hero doesn't have any battle scars. And that basically what that represents is Darkness attempting to tempt the hero. And if the player accepts the battle scar from this temptation, he has to roll on a chart that is weighted in his favor, because why would the hero ever accept this offer? if the chart wasn't weighted in his favor. However, there are some bad outcomes that could come from accepting that offer from darkness. And one of my favorite outcomes is the player becomes cursed. And from that point on, the player can always access the battle scars that the bad guys have from scene to scene from the prophecy meter. But every time he uses the battle scars from the bad guys, you have to re-roll on the chart, which could give the bad guys more battle scars or more. So I really wanted to illustrate the struggle between light and dark, like you said. And it's not just, if you're a hero in this setting, it's not just you have to have the biggest sword and the most powerful magic armor. You have to be smart. You have to understand that as a hero, it doesn't mean you can just level the village, job done, and keep it moving. You have to be wise. You have to fight against the temptations of darkness, and you have to be more than just a big sword.
See, you're dealing with some heavy stuff there, because it's cross-contamination of philosophies and worldviews. And you got to get your hands dirty if you're a hero or the other guy, and you're going to come into contact with things that may corrupt you or may push you out, or see if you can control that corruption, or because you're dealing with it. You know, like if somebody's a social worker and they're having to, you know what I mean, deal with what they see every day, will it affect you even though they have good intentions? How will that change their worldview? So that's what you're doing there. And I kind of recognize that. I liked it too. That's what it drew my mind to the, I referenced the Tolkien S shadow, but when you're struggling, when you're fighting, and we've seen these themes before, like even in Star Wars, not that I think you're doing it more honestly on more in game mechanic wise, on a more sophisticated level,
And I love the idea of battle scars. Like when a player gets a battle scar from the normal methods, a couple of the ways a player can get one of those bennies or hero points, the battle scars, is by being knocked to 0 hit points or knocked to 0 composure, losing a social interaction. They could get a battle scar. Of course, if it's hit points, I always try to illustrate. So tell me how what kind of scarring your character has from this physical confrontation. Like, do you have a scar across your cheek? Or when you take your armor off, do you have like wounds on your back from showing that you were in battle and you're a veteran and you've done this before? So I'll ask players to narrate that for me, because like you said, the battle scars come from the painful reminders, physical or mentally, that you have gone through, that makes you wiser and more of a veteran and more wily than other folks. Yeah, and so you can wrap as someone. Yeah, you can wrap your head around that.
Depth to the character and character development is important for me, because you don't really care. To me, you don't care about really a story, what's going on. You care about the story of the person and what they go through and how they're developing and the trials they go. Then that resistance, like I said, we all come up against life, and how do you cope with it and how do you deal with it?
Yeah. That's why my nickname is the narrator. It's a combination of narrator and raider. Because I love
Jason loved that. He's a Raiders fan.
Yeah, right. So I love character, and I love, because when I role play, I always play in character, in world, I think is the term. That gets used. So I always play my character like he or she is a living, breathing person in this setting that the GM has laid out for me. But I also like mechanics. I like using tactics. Something that I always say is I love role-playing games. If you take the role-playing away, why don't we just play a board game? And if you take the mechanics away, why don't we just do improv? And we could do either, but I like both. And I also like to realize what game I'm sitting at the table with. That's why I said last night when we were talking about it is when I sat down to play Dark Age of Man, I wasn't expecting to be playing Pathfinder 2nd edition. And I think you guys, you guys scored 110% on the test of whether or not this game is doing what you want it to do. That's why I was saying, guys, anybody who says to you, yeah, this game is good, but it's not 5th edition, ignore those people, because that's not what you were aiming for. And I really enjoyed the experience of playing Dark Age because it did everything I was expecting it to do. It was such a light, free experience where you didn't feel weighed down by any of these other concerns that some games put on you. And it's really fun. So I love both. I love mechanics and I love playing my character. And I always play in character, in world, may be the correct term when I role play.
Yeah, there is. I appreciate that. I think we were almost like swinging on a pendulum because so many games are so complex and there's a rules gate to get into them. And most people, honestly, a rule book, like I've said, is the most intimidating. That's the barrier for an entrance to the game. And most people, whether they're casual or not, they're going to sit down. Heck, if I go in there and sit down, I'll pass that rule book to my son because he'll actually read it. I'm sitting there going, you got time for this? Just tell me how to play it, right? I know game companies have to make money off of it, have to produce products to even keep going. And I'm thankful people buy, myself included, to keep the hobby going. Because, but I do want to open the door for more people to realize that, no, you don't really have to sit down with this rule book that is like this thick. Like, playing now is 622 pages thick, right? I didn't touch DCC because it was like that, for years. And I said, I ain't got time for this, man.
I'd love to make a character. And so at the very least, you'll have something for when we all get together. And I would, depending on what the circumstances are, after you make your character, I could even run you through a really quick conflict, so you know exactly how the
mechanisms work.
How the mechanisms will work. Yeah. And if you wanted to make your character on your own, obviously, all of the materials are out there for you to be able to do so. But if you prefer to have some guidance, that's what I'm here for.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we could do that now, or either if you got a pre-made character, run through combat. But I can fill out. I don't have any of your character sheets.
Okay.
Pre-printed out right now or to follow, but I do got a sheet of paper, so I don't know how. Like I said, I haven't read the rules set now, so we can go.
Let me.
Away on
do
that.
you want me to send you a link to a bundle of pre-made characters and just show you what conflict looks like real quick, or did you
yeah, that'll be fine.
Make a character? Okay, cool.
Because I'll probably need to print out the character sheet to be able to fill it out, and read the book so I know what I'm doing by step by step.
So right. what you behold in front of you is not. So that is your orc warrior. As I said, a traditional sword and board warrior. At the top of the character sheet or hero sheet in the middle, you'll see the 3 attack stats: warfare, influence, and power. As you mentioned previously, at the beginning of each round of a conflict, you will decide how you want to deal with the threats in front of you. Will you be using your sword and shield to bash and slash your enemy? You would want to roll your 2d6 plus 2 warfare. Actually, your character has a little bit of something in their influence, their charisma. So all characters start at 1d6. So you actually have a +3 in your influence. So you are not completely untrained in being able to talk down or frighten an enemy. And then power, of course, as a warrior, you don't really dabble in the arcane or divine forces of the setting. And as you also probably see, you have a under each attack stat, you have defensive stats. You have defense is under warfare, willpower is under influence, and resistance is under power. And essentially what those defensive stats determine is how many times an adversary can attack you. And I'll show you that, of course, when we do this little conflict. And then you have your talents, which are basically, especially for someone like your character, are basically additional things that you can do when you are attacking. So I don't really even call the talent system its own core mechanic, because it's kind of an addendum or add-on to the attack stats. And then finally, as you can see on the lower right-hand corner, you have your attributes, 10 of them: acrobatics, athletics, education, endurance, knowledge, perception, riding, strength, survival, and thievery. And these are all of the things that you use when you are interacting with the world outside of attacking or necessarily trying to affect an individual against their will. So, and that's pretty standard. You roll 2d6 and you add your total attribute against a static target number that I have already decided on.
Okay.
So, did you have any questions? Of course, I'll go through everything as it comes up, and we can.
No, I do. It just it's funny because when I was speaking about your example of the combat with the 3 and with the 6, and that they have to expend that much to be able to talk to. That's brilliant. Especially, it makes me think that now I understand what Jason was saying when he said that this is really a good fit for miniature play too, right? As far as where they get to and who they're allowed to attack, so they can select based on what they have to be able to attack, who's available. Yeah, I didn't even think of the fact that we would have our own defense modifiers that they have to go against too. You know, in the creatures we're up against. That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and it can be actually all of the sessions. Well, actually, the second session that I ran with Jason and Ivan, we did completely theater of the mind, and we're going to do that now, of course, because we don't have the screen set up for a tabletop. But yeah, we're going to do it theater of the mind, and I'll just keep track of positioning for you. On the back of the character sheet, it gives you a little bit of a character background. It says that your character's nomad band from the Endless Plains was wiped out by a fire elementals known as Flamekin. There is a history of animosity between your people and the Flamekin. So essentially, your orc, and generally orcs are found in the grass plains called the Endless Plains of the setting. It runs almost 70% of the island that is the setting of the world through the middle, from north to south, east and west, and almost takes up. That's why it's called the Endless Plains. It almost takes up 70% of the landmass of the island that is the setting of the world. And orcs are nomadic travelers through the setting.
Through those
and your orc, your nomad band was wiped out by fire elementals known as Flamekin. So what I will say is that you are moving through a small forest area just outside of the Endless Plains, and you are moving down a fairly well-worn trade road to whatever destination you're heading for. We're just going to make this quick and dirty so that you can see how the game plays. And as you are moving down the trade road off to the west, what you estimate is a couple of yards off of the trade road into the thick tree line, you hear the sound of a young human voice. you think, because of the accent and just the tone of a young child. No, get away! Screaming out for something or someone to leave him alone. It's a young boy's voice. And after the boy screams out, no, no, go away, leave me alone, get back, you hear a large snorting sound that you may identify as some type of animal.
Okay.
What do? You don't see anything.
Whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. A rush, not stealthily, but plodding forward into what I perceive to be is the area where this is going on. If I have to break through the tree line a little bit, and swinging my long sword and kind of batting away the foliage as I go through with my shield.
Excellent. So as you hurriedly move through the thick tree line, you see probably 4 or 5 yards ahead of you. The thick trees open up into a really small opening, probably 15 to 20 feet across.
Clearing.
Yeah, a little clearing, still surrounded by trees, but there's a little clear area there. You, as you move up, you see a large bear rise up on its hind legs and let out an aggressive growl. And you hear a little bit of cooing that also sounds like it's an animal, but a much smaller animal. And then you hear the young boy's voice scream out again, no, no, don't hurt me.
Okay, the bear is not facing me, but the little boy.
Correct. And you are, as you get closer and closer to the clearing and the scene gets clearer and clearer, you see the bear raised up on its hind legs in the clearing. You see the boy laying on the ground with a wicker basket filled with fruit laying on the ground, turned over next to him. And you see a small baby bear a yard or so inside the tree line behind the bear that is angrily raised up on its hind legs, threatening the boy. So what do you do?
Okay, I had no intention to even approach this silently. From the sounds that I was hearing, so I break out into the clearing, but I'm breaking out in a yell, and I'm banging the sword and shield up against the trees as I'm cutting through, and I'm screaming in rage and raising my hands and the shields up, like, posturing, showing me a huge. I am an orc after all. So
yes,
I'm hitting the trees and trying to get the foliage to drop. I don't know what time of year this is, but you get what I'm saying. I'm trying shaking the trees and doing really leveraging my influence toward trying to make this bear think twice. Right.
That's exactly what I was going to say. In your description, you're right on it. So obviously the bear hears you. The bear goes down back to all fours, snorts, and looks over to you with a little bit of saliva coming from its mouth, its large teeth, and it looks at you. And we're going to go ahead, and this is going to be a conflict. And you clearly have said that you're going to use your influence. So what you would want to do, Del, is you would want to roll 1d6 plus 3, and let me know every time. So this is called an attack stat roll, when you generate your attack points at the beginning of each round. So anytime you make an attack stat roll, a damage check, which we'll talk about later, and an attribute check, one of the die should be a different color, and you should designate that die as your fate die. So what the fate die does is every time it rolls a 6, you total up your roll, and you continue rolling and adding the total to the total until you don't roll a 6. And of course, since you're only rolling 1d6 because you only have a 1d6 plus 3, that 1d6 is your fate die in this circumstance, because gotcha. you always have to have one fate die. So if you go ahead and roll that and add plus 3 to it.
Okay, so I'm bellowing and howling, slapping the trees and making a big showing. Okay, I just rolled a 6.
Nice.
Yeah. See?
Yep. I believe. You have an honest face.
Okay, that's a 2. So 8 plus 3 is 11.
Yep. 11. Awesome. So that means that for this round, you have 11 attack points under your influence. So essentially, the way that, and the bear is going to be using it's angry. It is protecting its young. So it is going to be using its warfare. And the great thing about the system is the NPC's attack points are fixed. They use them during their turn and then they refresh. And the reason for that is that the NPCs don't have to roll a random roll. It makes it a lot easier for me to not have to roll for every NPC. So just to give you an idea, the bear has under their warfare, they have 12 attack points. So this particular bear, it would only be able to get 1 attack against you because you have a defense of 9. So it would spend 9 of its 12 and only get 1 attack against you. Right. Now, that being said, it has a willpower of 3. So since you're doing an influence attack, every time you can spend 3 influence points, you get a damage check against the bear. So you're raising your arms, you're banging your shield, you're crashing against the foliage to try to intimidate this bear. And there are 3 types of influence attacks in the game: frighten, taunt, or befriend. So it sounds like a frighten attack to me. So I'm going to say that's going to be a frighten attack. So basically what happens now, Del, is every time you can spend 3 of those attack points, you get a chance to damage or lower the bear's composure. So you have...
okay, I had 11, and you said the bear's influence defense is a 3, right?
It's a 3.
So that's essentially 3 times.
3 times. So
unless I want to utilize the battle scar, basically.
Okay. So did you if you use a battle scar, you have a couple of things that would apply to this circumstance. If you look at the back of your character sheet, neatly written there is what battle scars can be used for. On the back of the hero sheet, I should say, you can either spend a battle scar to lower the bear's willpower by 2, as you saw in the video with the elf and the orc and the goblin. You could also use a battle scar to increase your damage by 1d6. And of course, you don't have to spend that until you successfully hit. And as it actually says here, a character's defensive stats can never be lower than 2. So if you were to spend a battle scar to lower the bear's willpower, it would go down by 1, but that would give you, oh my God, that would actually give you 5 attacks if you did that. So that would be a fantastic, if you wanted to do that, you could do that.
Just to get that, you said it would lower it by 1.
Yes, because at no point can a character's defensive stat be lower than 2.
So it would be 9 for the first, and then the last 2 would be 1 apiece, so I could get 2 more on him, right? For 5 total. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that what you want to do? Or you just want to go with the 3 attacks that you'll be getting?
No, I mean, are these stackable right now? Like I would just roll an amount, or would I roll them?
You would roll them separately. The defense, if you decided to spend the battle scar to lower the bear's willpower, that lasts the entire round, but you would resolve each attack independently.
Okay.
And you would damage independently and then move on to the next attack.
Well, it's going to be more advantageous to take that, use that battle scar right now to get my 5 attacks in.
Okay. So you spend the battle scar. So narratively, what I look at this as is you've been in a situation like this. You're a seasoned warrior, even if it wasn't against a ferocious wild animal. You have before bear down and use your force of will to cower an enemy, and you are drawing on your experience. That is what allows you to spend the battle scar to lower your adversary's willpower against your ferocious charisma.
Yeah.
And so now, instead of only getting 3 attempts, you now have 5 attempts because you're bearing down on the bear and being frightening and making yourself bigger than the bear. So now that we know how many attacks you're going to get, this is now what you do is a damage check. So every time you can spend the appropriate number of attack points, you get a damage check. And essentially what a damage check is, I think it's kind of elegant. Your ability to damage a foe is based on your level. So you are a first level hero, and the bear is what's called a thug level NPC. So there are 5 levels of NPC in the game. You have minion, thug, lieutenant, chief, boss, and overlord. I have a little chart here that I cross-reference, and that chart tells me what a first level hero has to roll on 2d6 to damage a thug level NPC. And I should remember this because I've been running this game for people for at least 11 years, but I'm also old. So so I'm going to pull the attack chart up real quick and tell you what your target number is going to be.
Okay.
So you need against a thug level NPC, you need a 7 or better on 2d6. And don't forget your fate die. So this die can explode, and that could be important. So if you roll 2d6, you're looking for 7.
Yeah. 2, and one of them is that. Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's what I got is a 7. No explosion.
Excellent. So no explosion. All right. So what happens is, excuse me, with influence attacks, if you look at your character sheet below your drive and connection on the right-hand side, you have something called influence damage.
Yeah.
Your influence damage should be an 8. So essentially, whenever you try to bring your composure to bear, or your influence to bear against an enemy, I should stop saying.
I know. Bear. I love it.
that is the amount of composure loss that you cause when you try to force your charisma on someone. So you successfully damage the bear you do 8 points of influence damage. And if you also look, I'll just tell you because you want to understand completely how the game works. If you look on the left-hand side, you see something called influence armor. You have a 3. So that is the number of damage reduction. Basically, it's your innate ability to resist the manipulation of your emotions. The bear has a influence armor of 2. So it loses 6 of its composure. And I'm not going to tell you where it is out of surprise. So you raise up, you make yourself bigger than the bear, you smack your armor, you grit your teeth, you draw on your experience as a seasoned warrior attempting to intimidate an adversary, lowering the bear's defense, and you successfully frighten the bear and lowering its composure by some number that I'm going to keep a mystery until they get to 0. And the bear, you notice that the bear, it was gritting its fangs at you and saliva was flying from its mouth. You notice that the flaps of its mouth covers up its fangs, and its eyes open widely as though you have started down the track of cowering this ferocious bear. So if my memory serves me right, you have 4 more opportunities to frighten the bear. So I'll need you to roll another damage check against this thug level NPC. You'll still need a 7.
Okay. That's rolling. Okay. 1 plus 3.
2d6. Yep. No, it's just the straight 2d6 roll. Yep.
Okay.
The damage check. Yep. Don't forget your fate die.
To the first. I rolled a 4 on that one.
Okay, so you continue banging your shield and making yourself bigger than the bear, and the bear looks like, oh, wait a minute, I've
stepped out from beyond the tree line, and I'm doing that, so I don't have the trees helping me now.
And as you do that, as you make this next attempt, you hear the baby bear coo a little bit, and the mama bear looks over and is like, oh, I forgot while I was here, these guys are threatening my child. And it rears up on its hind legs again, trying to still intimidate and frighten you. So it looks like that second attempt wasn't very successful, but you still have 3 more attempts because you've lowered this bear's willpower. So another damage check, 7 or better.
That is 7.
All right. So your composure, your influence damage is 8. So did you want to spend a battle scar to increase your damage at all? I'm just asking. You don't have to.
Yeah, because I didn't know. I was going to ask. I didn't know exactly if there was a limit to that, or if it was
if
more.
If you wanted to, you could.
Okay. I think.
But what I will tell you is, you get the impression. I'm not going to cheat you. You get the impression that your first attempt was very successful and almost took the fight out of her. But it's up to you as to whether or not you still have.
As far as the impression, I know that she's just got her second win when she looked at the child, and I want to nip it in the bud, as Barney Fife says right now.
There you go. Nip it in the bud.
I'm gonna throw that extra D6 in there, right? It's a regular D6.
Yep. So your damage is your influence damage is 8 from your hero sheet, and then you'll just roll another D6 to increase that 8.
Okay.
So the battle scar increases any damage from an attack by 1d6.
Yeah.
So just roll 1d6 for me. Yep.
A 4.
4. So that's 12 damage. So just to give you an idea, minus her influence armor, so that's 10. So what happens is, just to give you an idea, because this is a wrap, it would have been probably been longer if you decided to use warfare. So what happens is the bear's this thug level NPC only has a composure of 12, and you know how much influence armor she only has. Influence armor of 2. So basically, you did 16 points of damage in one round, composure damage. So she is at -4 composure. So what happens now is she suffers a breakdown, and since this was a frightened attack, each type of attack. Influence attack, you get a different result. Frightening means that she is completely scared of you and is going to retreat from you for a number of rounds based on a 2d6 roll. So I'm going to roll 2d6. She's going to run away from you for 5 rounds and do nothing but try to get away from you because you've scared her. But I think it only makes narrative sense that she's here protecting her young. She's not going to abandon her young no matter how scared she is.
So grab him up and run.
Yeah. Yep. So you have taken. You are so intimidating and so ferocious with your charisma. She drops down to all 4s, stops baring her fangs, gets a look of sadness and fear in her eyes, turns and starts galloping away toward her young, grabs her young up by the scruff in her teeth, and continue to move through the trees as quick as possible. And you know that you have scared her so bad that unless you follow her or come across her young again after she's gotten herself together, she's not going to come back to bother you. The bear runs away, and the boy is laying on the ground, breathing hard. And what do you do?
Okay, my nostrils are still flared up from excitement. I'm blowing them real quick, and I look around after making sure that the bear's gone off and grabbed her cub. It seemed that she grabbed her cub is more of a relief too. So she's running for that. So I'm snorting, and then almost like the child comes back into my mind when I hear it. panting or making noise or whimpering or whatever's doing. I turn around and look, and I stand there and just stare at it for a minute. But I drop my sword and my shield down slowly. Okay. And so I'm just kind of huffy breathing, looking at him and seeing if he notices.
So he definitely looks back at you, and his face goes from relief to back. When he looks at you, goes back to fear, and he yells, "Ah, orc!" and stands up and starts running in the opposite direction away from you. And something I should let you know, so that you know, because you are a denizen in the world. So orcs came to the island as about 200 years ago as conquerors. They conquered several human settlements along with the goblins of the setting, and they were doing a very good job of subjugating the island. And they finally got to the elven homeland, which is on the northern tip of the island, where they were finally defeated by the elves, and with help from the trolls, which are also another player race in the setting. But they're on the trolls are not in the basic edition of the game. The trolls are illusionists and shape changers, so they help the elves beat back the orcs. And since that time, 200 years ago, the orcs have nomadically traveled the endless plains. So some people fear orcs. And so that's why, just to explain, that you as an orc, you are used to sometimes people judging you by the deeds of your ancestors. So this child he's probably already frazzled from the bear, but he looks at you and he yells, "Orc!" And he gets up and starts running in the opposite direction. And give me a perception roll. So a perception roll is going to be 2d6. Again, don't forget your fate die. Yep. And you're going to roll your 2d6 and add your total perception to the roll.
Okay. Perception is 5. Okay, that is 16.
16. Oh man, that's good. That is good enough for everyday, average, challenging, difficult. That's good enough for a difficult result, and there are only 2 other results above that. So as the child runs away from you, leaving his basket of fruit and dirt kicking up behind him, and runs into out of the clearing back into the trees away from you, you see 6 men, all of them dressed in leather, right in front of him, and he's running toward them. And you see the lead human, scruffy, shoulder-length hair, wearing leather. He has a long bow, and he is pointing the bow at you. Looks like he's about to let loose with an arrow. What do you do?
Okay, well, this is just to elaborate on what kind of transpired. Whenever the child got up, screamed "orc" and ran off, yes. Kind of an expected reaction, right? So I'm coming off the bear, and then I'm about to turn around, and I noticed the basket laying there. So I'm walking up to it, and I reach down and pluck out an apple, and I stand up there and bite into it. And that's when I notice the group of men and him running up to him with the bow.
Yeah, one of them is pointing a bow at you. Yeah.
And I'm not about to put the apple on my head. So I should. But okay, at this moment, I will straight, once I drop that apple, right?
Okay.
Falls on the ground. I'm going straight for the cover of the biggest tree.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because they're in a tree line, right? Just to get some cover. Bolt into it. that
So
apple.
he needs, just to give you, let you know how the sausage is made. This NPC is a minion level NPC, and actually, because mechanically you have to know this information. Obviously, it has to be transparent because you have to know how many attack points to roll, and I have to tell you what your target number is. You can basically look at an individual and surmise how good they are, what level they may be. And it's all, of course, because you have to mechanically know as well. So these guys are minions. Yeah. They are the lowest level NPC in the game. So he is going to let loose a shot. You have cover, which means that his attack is hindered. So his fate die won't explode. And if he has anything that will trigger off of his fate die rolling a particular number, it won't explode because of your cover. So that's what the cover does. It prevents your enemy's fate from exploding. And the reason I don't give a straight negative is because, as you can tell, 2 to 12, the scale is already really small. I didn't want to put a negatives could be really penalizing, so that's what I came up with. So a minion level character needs an 8 or better on 2d6 to successfully hit you. So he's going to let loose with a shot. He needs an 8. He rolls a 10. So as you duck behind the largest tree, just as you get your shoulder around the cover, he lets loose and catches you in the shoulder with his arrow. And let me grab something really quickly. All right, and I have returned. And so it hits you in the shoulder, and it does 10 damage, 10 hit point damage. And essentially what you do, Del, is you have physical armor, which you see it's a 4 and a 6. So the 4 is the medium armor that you're wearing, and the +2 comes from your shield. So reduce the 10 damage by 6, and you and that's the total hit points that you lose. So that reduces your 45 hit points. So you take 4
down to 41.
Yep.
Okay. Whenever he hit me in the shoulder, because I was going for it, he sticks me in the shoulder. It'll spin me around, and I slam my back into the tree. Damnable humans! And I pull the arrow out. I know it hurts and probably ripping flesh, but and I'll throw it down like that and kind of bellow. All right.
Excuse me. Okay. And he yells at you, "We'll kill you, you filthy orc, for harming our child." And with that, we'll just go on to the next round. So, Del, you're back pressed against the tree. You have 6 humans attempting to rescue the boy. You think that they may have heard the boy's screams and came running. And you pull the arrow out of your shoulder. So in this round, how are you going to approach it? Are you going to prepare yourself for warfare? Are you going to use influence? And I'm assuming power is out of the question because you really don't have any spell abilities. And once you decide how you're going to approach this next round, roll the D6 and add the bonus that it corresponds to the attack stat you're going to use.
Okay. Well, since I got plugged, and then he says that kill me for messing with his child, and I'll say I have no need for the boy. Ask him yourself. You take the boy and go. And anyway, I'm rolling for influence to see if that does it. And I'm saying this while I'm trying to, patching it or whatever, plugging down, get some blood, and then putting it in the wound. As I'm saying this, okay. Listening both while for them approaching on either side, talking casually like, "Oh God, it's gone downhill."
And if you roll you roll your influence 1d6 plus 3.
Okay, it's 8 total.
8. Okay, so you have 8 attack points. This gentleman's willpower is 3 as well. So if you want to, you're trying to talk him down and get him to listen to the story from the boy. Every time you can spend 3 of those 8 attack points, you get a damage check against this NPC, the one who's shooting you, and he's only a minion. So unlike the bear, you only need a 6 or better on 2d6.
Okay.
Every time you can spend 3 attack points.
Okay, got that one. That is 11. Oh, and actually it's explosive. Hold on. 14.
14, you needed a 6. That's plus 8. Okay, I'm going to, you really don't need to know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. If you look at your hero sheet, you notice that one of the categories under your weapon is a category called SCM. It should say 3
SCM,
plus 8.
Speed plus 8, yeah.
So what SCM stands for, Del, is stun check modifier. Any attack that will cause hit point damage or composure damage will have a stun check modifier. And it's super simple, so I'll tell you what it means. The stun check modifier is if you roll your damage check and your total is the target number you needed plus the SCM, the stun check modifier, you stun the target. So the SCM for influence attacks for first level characters is 7. So you needed a 6 plus 7, you needed a 13, but you got a 14. So you stun the leader of this group, or the guy who shot you, you stun him with your influence attack. So I'm going to say this was befriend. It sounded like there's 3 influence attacks: frighten, taunt, or befriend. I'm going to assume you were trying to favorably get him to agree with you, so it's a befriend. So you hear the boy crying, and the guy is, "Get out of here, you filthy! We'll kill you for the..." What you? So you were so convincing with what you said, and mechanically you rolled well enough that you do what you stun him with your influence attack, which automatically he will give you what a stun means for a befriend attack is he will give you more time to make your case because you stunned him with your oration. So he's reaching back for his arrow, and you say what you say, and he says, What did you say, orc?"
Okay, I'm picking now. I'm still patting up and ask the boy, "Take your leave. I'll be on my way. It was a bear in the clearing. The bear's gone now. Perhaps you should be wary of it. Don't travel to and I'll say the direction that the bear ran off. It ran off in that way. Ask the boy."
Excuse me. Would you like to? So you had 8 attack points. You spent 3 of them. You have 5, which would give you 1 more attack. Did you want to try to solidify what you're trying to convince him of by making your next attack?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Go ahead and roll. You need a 6 or better.
That's just what I rolled, is a 6. It's a 6.
Awesome.
4 and a 2.
So you do 8 more points. 7, and 12. So you did 8. You did 16 minus his. Okay, you seal the deal even without your stun. The boy looks up at him, and the boy is crying. I'm sorry, Father. He is correct. He frightened the bear off, but I was scared. I know there are orc raiders in the area. He looks down at the boy, and he drops his bow, and he pushes the boy behind him to safety to some of the men behind him, and he says, "Orc, you saved my boy." He drops his bow, and he comes out into the clearing with his hand up, and he says, "I'm sorry." And you can see that some of the men behind him, they have their bows out, and they have them facing down though, and they're looking at each other. They look skeptical,
Right. Yeah.
And he looks back at them, and he gives them the motion to put their weapons down, even though they're already facing down. And he waves them to come out. He says,
I'll swing out about now, from the tree, kind of slowly with my arm. And then I pat it with my other arm, showing them, as I'm coming around. That was empty. I've already put my sword back, and I'll sling my shield over my back.
Okay.
In case I need to take off running. But anyway, I'm showing them that I'm, still hurt from the arrow. And I'll walk out in the clearing. It's okay. No harm done. She'll heal up good. Just keep a lookout for it there.
Maiden, look at his shoulder. Maybe you can wrap his wound. And the youngest boy, all the way the sixth man, who is actually a little bit on the younger side, and you see him, the older boy than the one that you rescued. He kind of scowls at you and says, "It's an orc." And the man talking to you says, "Boy, are you deaf? Did you hear what I said? Patch his wound. It is our fault." And he puts his bow over his shoulder and starts walking over to you while he's digging in a leather pouch and pulling out what looks like herbs and some tattered rags. And he starts reluctantly.
I'll let him approach and then move back my, the clothing part. And
you're really tall. You're probably 6'5", 6'6".
I'll kneel down on my knee and remove it while he's approaching.
As he comes over, he gives you a dirty look and kind of rolls his eyes. He presses the herbs against your wound and starts to wrap your shoulder. The man the father who's been talking to you, he looks over, and you can see that he's looking at the bear tracks, and he like nods in affirmation and says, "I'm sorry, my friend. My people have been harmed by orc raiders in the area. We should not assume that every orc is a raider."
Oh, yeah. That's brilliant, man, because when entering that area, what I wanted to do was scare it off, because I didn't want to fight it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that option to me, it just where I didn't have to go, okay, roll initiative. You know what I mean? And let me approach it how I liked. That's great. Because that was my only hope. If that wouldn't have panned out, I might have turned tail.
Yeah, you didn't want to kill an innocent animal.
Yeah, well,
or maybe try.
Even bother or get killed by an animal that's just like that. So, Yeah, the way I was envisioning the orc walking through there, and he's probably coming into contact with different things like that. No, it's best to just scare it off.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But even when you said that little coon was back there, I'm like, oh, this could be a little bit worse. So to me, I'm already thinking I really need to go a little bit overboard and make sure I seal this deal before it gets any worse, So, but I love having the opportunity to approach a situation differently. And that's what I'm saying. Mechanically, you're allowing that more so. I want to say something that slipped my mind about, about like when you're talking about even like an orc or an elf in your video, you said like they start out with these base attributes for their racial, and then they're adjusted by trained. So you got your natural and you got your trained. I love that. I mean, because you know what I mean. It gives more credence to the races, and I know it's represented in some way otherwise, but I love how it's not how you fuse the attributes and the overarching skill set together. It's a moot point to break them up, really, when it comes down to it, in my estimation, at least. So that kills two birds with one stone. You got it laid out right there. It's 10. It covers everything. You can say, well, it's a physical attribute. I don't need to say it's physical and then this falls under that. Let's just put them together. This is what it covers. And he's more trained in this than what? What do you want to spend? See, I don't know yet if it's a point, but I haven't did the character creation on it. But I'll read the book. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and buy the book. Looking at your sheet here, the attributes, writing straight, survival, thievery, perception, knowledge, endurance, education, athletics. That's what you can call on whenever, like it's the umbrella attribute.
Yeah, they have their all of them are a wide area of expertise. So, for instance, riding covers wagoneering, horseback, and if you look at your character actually has a specialization in riding, which is riding a mammal called an oxalo, which in the setting is a revered large mammal, which is kind of a cross between a buffalo and a rhinoceros that orcs worship. And essentially, you have to have high status in orc culture to have your own oxalo and ride it. Usually you may have to be a chieftain in some cases, but all orc children are taught to ride, to revere the oxalo and to they're taught as a child to ride it. But in order to have your own huge, massive riding beast, you have to have status. So that's the narrative reason why you have specialization in a riding animal that you don't currently have. But yeah, that's an example of riding a particular type of animal would give you a +2 whenever you make a roll. So if you were,
your attributes are tied to the setting and the flavor of the setting, because you're already intriguing me with the world that you've got here built here in the back. The endless plains.
Yes.
The orcs are nomadic.
Yes,
I know you put a lot of work into that, and to go back real quick to the influence. I know I can approach influence, but a lot of times when you're approaching someone, you want to approach them. You never know if you may have a strength in something that they have a weakness in. That bear may have a lot of tougher hide than it did, comparatively. So that's nice, man. That's nice. It's not just one dimensional. You know what I mean?
And also as a balancing, if you look at your character, obviously you can tell as a warrior, your defense, for instance, is higher than your resistance to magic. So one thing that players probably don't like, but as a GM, it's a great thing about Peace is no character can be good at everything. So if you have to challenge a player, for instance, I would throw magic users against your character because you can be hit a lot more with magic than mundane implements of warfare. So as a player, you don't want to hear that you're vulnerable to something. But as a GM, it allows you to pick out the kinds of areas and ways you can challenge your players to give them, a good, interesting challenge. So that's the fact that you can attack in 3 different ways and defend in 3 different ways helps the GM balance challenges.
Yeah, this is interesting. But I have to buy the book and I have to read it first,
Well, you have the PDF for free.
I do that, but the book's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it even had color on the inside. I know that wasn't cheap. Can I see it? Do you have it in front of you?
Yep. This guy. Well, yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
it has.
cool.
Now this one has. It's the horizontal format, and let's see if I have an interesting picture in here. This one. I had Lulu print this up when I had 75% of the book completed, and I don't have all of the illustrations, but the very few illustrations that are in the basic edition of the game. But yeah, it's laid out like so.
Sweet.
It's a horizontal format because I was trying to be different. I know a lot of people are like, no, man, not a horizontal book. How's that going to fit in my bookshelf? And this is actually the cover. My cover doesn't have a picture on it. All it has is the logo and a little blurb at the bottom that says, "From stillness and darkness, the world was born, so too shall it return." And the reason... Yes, the reason I decided to go without a cover, not just trying to be different this time, like the horizontal formatting, but the name of the game is so unique, and I thought that the name Peace for Fantasy RPG was unique, and I've had people ask, what does that mean? Does that mean everybody loves each other?
The struggle for peace.
Yeah.
Full circle. Full circle.
Yeah.
Back around. Yeah, so I get it.